Spring 1945. A crisp morning in the Netherlands, near the German border. Rows of Canadian soldiers stand frozen in formation, their breaths visible in the chill air. Jeeps hum softly in the background, and the faint scent of damp earth lingers. They're assembled for a ceremony of honor, awaiting the arrival of one of the war's most celebrated figures. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, the architect of Allied triumphs, the man who outmaneuvered Rommel in North Africa and led the charge across Europe. As his staff car pulls up, Montgomery steps out with his signature confidence, beret tilted just so, hands behind his back, striding like a conqueror. He's here to award the Distinguished Conduct Medal, one of the highest honors for bravery under fire, to a Canadian private who's become a legend in the ranks. The name echoes across the ground, Private Léo Major. From the line steps a man who defies the polished image of a parade soldier. His uniform is neat but battle-worn, an eye patch covering his left eye, giving him the look of a determined survivor rather than a drill-perfect trooper. He approaches with steady purpose. Montgomery reaches for the medal, ready to pin it on, envisioning the moment as a symbol of Allied unity. But Léo Major pauses. He meets the Field Marshal's gaze with unyielding intensity. In that suspended instant, with officers and troops watching, Major delivers a quiet but firm declaration that ripples through the assembly like a shockwave. He cannot accept this honor from a commander he deems unfit. He turns and walks away, leaving the medal untouched and the mighty Montgomery standing in stunned silence. This wasn't just an act of defiance, it was a statement forged in the fires of overlooked sacrifices and hard-won truths. How could a lowly private risk everything to reject glory from one of the most powerful men in the Allied forces? To grasp the depth of this moment, we must journey back to the man behind the eye patch, the battles that shaped him, and the strategic decisions that cost so much. This is the story of Léo Major, the one-eyed scout who became a symbol of unyielding integrity, and the forgotten campaign that tested the limits of courage and command. Léo Major was born on January 23, 1921, in New Bedford, Massachusetts, but his family soon moved to Montreal, Quebec, where he grew up in a working-class French-Canadian neighborhood. Life wasn't easy for young Léo. His father worked on the railways, and the household was marked by tension and hardship. As a teenager, Léo faced challenges that built his resilient spirit. He left school early, took odd jobs, and developed a reputation as someone who wouldn't back down from a fight. But beneath the tough exterior was a deep sense of purpose. When World War II erupted in 1939, Canada joined the Allied cause, and Léo saw an opportunity not just to serve, but to prove his worth. At 19, in the summer of 1940, he enlisted in the Canadian Army, joining the Regiment de la Chaudière, a storied unit from Quebec named after the Chaudière River Valley. This regiment, part of the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division, was composed largely of French-speaking soldiers, reflecting Canada's bilingual heritage and the vital role of its troops in the global conflict. Training was rigorous. Léo and his comrades drilled in Canada before shipping out to England in 1941, where they prepared for the invasion of Europe. The war was already a grinding machine, with battles raging from the deserts of Africa to the skies over Britain. For the Canadians, the wait was long, but it honed their skills. Léo excelled as a scout and sniper, his sharp instincts and fearlessness setting him apart. He was known for his quick thinking and ability to operate independently, traits that would soon be tested in the crucible of combat. By 1944, the Allies were poised for the decisive push, Operation Overlord, the D-Day landings on June 6. Léo's regiment hit Juno Beach, one of the 5 landing zones assigned to British and Canadian forces. The beaches were a storm of steel. Machine guns chattered from fortified positions, artillery shells exploded in the sand, and waves crashed over landing craft. Amid the chaos, Léo advanced with his unit, pushing inland through hedgerows and villages. It was here, just days after D-Day, that fate dealt him a blow that would have ended most soldiers' wars. On June 8, 1944, during a patrol near Cannes, Léo encountered a German SS patrol. In the fierce exchange, a phosphorus grenade exploded near him, shattering his left eye and burning his face. The pain was excruciating, the wound severe enough to warrant immediate evacuation. Doctors at a field hospital told him his fighting days were over, he'd be sent home with a medical discharge, honored but sidelined. But Léo Major wasn't one to accept defeat. With characteristic grit, he argued that a sniper only needs one good eye to aim a rifle. He refused the discharge, bandaged up, and returned to his unit within weeks, now wearing an eye patch that earned him the nickname, the One-Eyed Ghost. His comrades marveled at his determination. To the enemy, he would become a phantom in the night. This resilience wasn't just personal, it embodied the spirit of the Canadian forces, who often fought in the shadow of larger Allied armies but delivered outsized contributions. As the summer of 1944 wore on, the Allies broke out from Normandy, liberating Paris and racing toward the German border. The momentum was exhilarating, but victory disease set in, the belief that the war could end by Christmas if they pushed hard enough. Supreme Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower oversaw a broad front strategy, advancing across a wide swath of Western Europe. But Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, commanding the 21st Army Group, which included the Canadian First Army, had a different vision. Monty, as he was known, was a meticulous planner, famous for his victory at El Alamein in 1942. He was also known for his ego, his careful buildup of forces before attacks, and his sometimes strained relations with American generals like George Patton, who favored bold, rapid maneuvers. Montgomery proposed Operation Market Garden, a daring airborne assault to capture bridges over the Rhine River in the Netherlands, paving a direct path to Berlin. It was ambitious, requiring paratroopers from the US, Britain, and Poland to drop behind enemy lines while ground forces raced up a narrow corridor. Eisenhower approved it, diverting massive resources, fuel, ammunition, and transport, to Monty's plan. Yet, in the rush for glory, a critical detail was overlooked: the port of Antwerp. Captured intact by the Allies in early September 1944, Antwerp was Europe's largest port, essential for supplying the advancing armies. Without it, logistics stretched thin, with supplies trucked hundreds of miles from Normandy. But Antwerp sat at the mouth of the Scheldt estuary, a 60-mile waterway controlled by German forces on both banks. The Germans had fortified the area with the 15th Army, about 80,000 troops under General Gustav Adolf von Zongen, who had escaped encirclement earlier due to Allied hesitations. They flooded the lowlands, turning the polders, reclaimed farmlands, into a muddy quagmire, dotted with dikes, canals, and concrete bunkers. Montgomery prioritized Market Garden, viewing the Scheldt as a secondary task. He assigned it to the 1st Canadian Army, led by General Harry Crerar, with attached British and Polish units. Crerar's pleas for more resources fell on deaf ears. 80% of supply lines fed Market Garden, leaving the Canadians with scraps. Operation Market Garden launched on September 17, 1944, with spectacular parachute drops and initial gains. But it faltered at Arnhem, the last bridge, where British paratroopers were overwhelmed. The operation failed, costing over 17,000 Allied casualties and dashing hopes for a quick end to the war. Meanwhile, the Canadians geared up for the Scheldt, code-named Operation Switchback and later phases. On October 2, they attacked. The terrain was a nightmare. Flat, waterlogged fields offered no cover, allowing German spotters to direct artillery with deadly accuracy. Soldiers waded through waist-deep mud, where tanks bogged down and infantry advanced under constant fire. Amphibious vehicles called buffaloes ferried troops across channels, but without adequate air support or heavy artillery, they were vulnerable. The Germans fought tenaciously, knowing the Scheldt's importance. Battles raged at places like Wensdrecht, the Leopold Canal, and Walcheren Island, where causeways were mined and flooded. Léo Major was in the thick of it. As a scout for the Chaudière Regiment, he operated ahead of the lines, gathering intelligence and disrupting enemy positions. The campaign dragged on for 5 grueling weeks, from October 2 to November 8, 1944. The toll was staggering. The 1st Canadian Army suffered 6,367 casualties, killed, wounded, or missing. Total Allied losses reached 12,873, including British and Polish troops. These numbers rivaled D-Day's casualties but unfolded in a relentless slog, far from the headlines. The world focused on Market Garden's drama, while the Scheldt became the forgotten battle. For the Canadians, it was a testament to their endurance. They cleared the estuary, allowing Antwerp to open on November 28, supplying millions of tons of material that sustained the final push into Germany. But the cost bred resentment. Many, including Léo, saw Montgomery's neglect as a betrayal, prioritizing his grand scheme over the practical needs of the troops in the mud. It was during this campaign that Léo Major etched his name into legend. On the night of October 30, 1944, near the village of Zwolle, Léo volunteered for a solo reconnaissance mission. The area was crawling with Germans, the temperature hovering near freezing. Slipping through the darkness in soft-soled shoes for silence, he spotted an enemy command post. Instead of reporting back, he acted. Armed with a Sten submachine gun and grenades, he ambushed the guards, captured the German officer in charge, and used him as leverage. With sheer audacity, he convinced the entire garrison, 93 soldiers from the 64th Infantry Division, to surrender. Marching them back to Canadian lines under the cover of night, he delivered a company's worth of prisoners without firing a shot after the initial takedown. This feat, documented in regimental records, showcased what individual initiative could achieve amid strategic oversights. For this, Léo was nominated for the Distinguished Conduct Medal, recognizing gallantry in the face of the enemy. But when he learned that Field Marshal Montgomery would present the award, Léo's resolve hardened. His disdain for Monty wasn't abstract, it stemmed from the Scheldt's harsh realities. He had seen comrades fall due to supply shortages, watched as careful pleas for support were ignored in favor of the failed airborne gamble. Montgomery's style, cautious to the point of delay, image-conscious, and dismissive of the Canadians as colonials, clashed with Léo's frontline ethos. Competence, to Léo, meant valuing lives over headlines. So, on that parade ground in spring 1945, he made his stand. Declining the medal wasn't about rejecting honor, it was about preserving it. He stated plainly that he couldn't accept it from a leader he viewed as responsible for unnecessary losses. The moment sent whispers through the ranks, boosting morale among the troops who shared similar frustrations but lacked the voice to express them. This act of principle elevated Léo's status. Rather than punishment, it underscored his untouchable heroism. The war wasn't over, and Léo continued his daring operations. Just months later, in April 1945, he would embark on his most famous exploit. But that's for the next chapter of this incredible saga. Léo Major's story reminds us that true leadership emerges not from rank, but from actions that inspire and protect. In the annals of World War II, amid the grand strategies and famous names, stands a one-eyed Canadian who chose integrity over acclaim, ensuring that the sacrifices of the Scheldt would not be forgotten. Stay with us as we delve deeper into his legacy and the battles that defined an era. As the war in Europe raced toward its dramatic conclusion in the spring of 1945, the Canadian forces pushed deeper into the Netherlands, liberating towns and villages from years of occupation. The Germans were retreating, but pockets of resistance remained fierce, especially in fortified cities. One such place was Zwolle, a historic city of about 50,000 people in the northeast, surrounded by rivers and canals. The Regiment de la Chaudière, Léo Major's unit, approached its outskirts. Commanders planned a heavy artillery bombardment to soften German defenses before an infantry assault, a standard tactic that would reduce the city to rubble and likely claim countless civilian lives. But Léo Major saw another way. On the evening of April 13, 1945, the regiment needed intelligence. How many Germans held Zwolle, where were their positions, and could contact be made with the Dutch resistance? 2 volunteers were called for a dangerous night reconnaissance mission. Léo and his close friend, Corporal Wilfred "Willie" Arsenault, stepped forward. They slipped into the darkness, armed lightly with Sten guns, grenades, and unyielding determination. Tragedy struck early. As they neared the city, a German machine gun nest opened fire. Willie was killed instantly. Rage fueled Léo. Instead of retreating to report the loss, he pressed on alone, driven by grief and a refusal to let the planned shelling destroy innocent lives. What followed was a night of calculated chaos that would become one of the most astonishing solo actions of the war. Moving silently through the shadows, his running shoes muffling his steps, as always, Léo infiltrated Zwolle. He began a deliberate campaign of deception. Firing bursts from his submachine gun in one neighborhood, then dashing to another to throw grenades and shout orders in French and English, he created the illusion of a massive Canadian advance. Germans, hearing explosions and gunfire erupting from multiple directions, panicked. Léo captured small groups of soldiers, disarming them and sending them running toward presumed safety, further spreading alarm. He located a German officer in a tavern, took him prisoner, and used him to extract information about troop strength and positions. At one point, he set fire to a building associated with the SS, the flames lighting the night sky and adding to the confusion. Encountering resistance members, he coordinated briefly, assuring them help was coming, though it was just him. Hour after hour, through the cold April night, Léo ran from street to street, a one-man storm convincing the garrison they were surrounded and outnumbered. By dawn on April 14, the Germans had fled westward across the Isle River, abandoning Zwolle without a fight. Léo returned to his unit, exhausted but triumphant, reporting the city clear. The planned bombardment was cancelled. Canadian troops entered to cheering crowds, flags waving, and tears of relief. Not a single civilian life was lost in the liberation, nor a building heavily damaged. Zwolle was free, saved by the audacity of one determined soldier honoring his fallen friend and protecting the innocent. For this extraordinary feat, Léo Major was awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal, presented quietly later, without fanfare from distant commanders. It recognized his gallantry, initiative, and complete disregard for personal safety. The people of Zwolle never forgot. They embraced him as their liberator, teaching his story in schools, naming a street Léo Majorlan, and erecting a statue in his honor. Years later, in 2005, they made him an honorary citizen during an emotional visit. The refusal on that parade ground earlier in 1945 had not diminished his legend, it amplified it. Many accounts speak of Léo's deep frustration with strategic decisions that cost lives during the Scheldt campaign, where Canadian sacrifices cleared the vital port of Antwerp but at great human expense. His stand was a quiet protest for those who fought in the mud, a reminder that true honor comes from actions, not just orders. The war ended weeks later, with victory in Europe on May 8, 1945. Léo returned to Canada, settling in Montreal as a pipefitter, marrying Pauline, and raising a family. He spoke little of his exploits, preferring a quiet life. But war called once more. When North Korea invaded the South in 1950, sparking the Korean War under United Nations command, Léo volunteered again, joining the Royal 22E Regiment, Canada's famous Van Deuce. In November 1951, during bitter fighting around Hill 355, a key position near the 38th parallel, Léo, now a corporal leading a scout and sniper platoon, faced overwhelming odds. Chinese forces launched massive assaults to seize the hill. In a daring nighttime operation, Léo and his small team infiltrated enemy lines, attacking from the rear to recapture it and relieve trapped American artillerymen. For 3 days, they held against relentless counterattacks, calling in artillery dangerously close to their positions. Léo refused orders to withdraw, holding until reinforcements arrived. This earned him a bar to his Distinguished Conduct Medal, the only Canadian ever to receive the DCM in 2 separate wars, a rare honor across the entire Commonwealth. It underscored his lifelong ethos, competence, courage, and loyalty to those beside you. Léo Major passed away on October 12, 2008, at age 87, leaving a legacy that transcends battlefields. In the Netherlands, he's celebrated as a hero who saved lives through ingenuity and heart. In Canada, his story inspires as a testament to quiet bravery. The French-Canadian who proved one person, driven by principle, can change history. From refusing a claim to spare his integrity, to liberating a city alone to protect the vulnerable, Léo embodied the best of the soldier's spirit. He didn't fight for glory or headlines. He fought for his comrades, for the fallen, for freedom. And in doing so, he ensured that the sacrifices of war, those in the Scheldt's freezing waters, on Normandy's beaches, in Korea's frozen hills, were never in vain. Today, his name lives on, in statues, streets, and stories passed down. Léo Major, the one-eyed ghost, reminds us all that real heroes walk among us, often unseen, until their light shines through the darkest nights. What an incredible life! What an unforgettable legacy!